Alright everyone, Slate and a bunch of other outlets are really mad at the Manafort judge right now, TSL. So I believe it was a Reagan appointee, if I remember correctly. Presiding over the case, the prosecutors have come and said Manafort laundered money, Manafort evaded taxes, Manafort obstructed and tampered with witnesses and stuff. I think personally Manafort was being a fool by tampering and obstructing, is properly imprisoned for that. But eventually, I think the ultimate outcome, based on what I'm seeing here, is likely to be Manafort ends up getting time served on obstruction and tampering and no further charges. And I'll tell you why. In their opening against Manafort so far, all the prosecution has done is say, hey, Manafort didn't make enough money to afford, like, the luxuries that he has here. You know, he had the mink coat, you know, the pimp cane and stuff like that. He couldn't possibly have afforded these things without laundering money and evading taxes. The problem, and the judges pointed this out, that in and of itself is number one, not a crime, and number two, not even evidence. You can speculate that that's what happened, but in and of itself, having a lavish, luxurious lifestyle, while having, in their mind, too little income to live that lifestyle, isn't evidence of really anything at all. Therefore, Manafort, the charges I think that'll stick are obstruction and tampering. I think he'll get time served. I think they'll say, well, you know, you've already been, you know, by the time it concludes, he'll have been in jail for a year probably, or maybe 2 years. They'll say, well, for this particular charge, who gives a fuck? It's like tax evasion. They pointed out the average sentence for tax evasion is like 1.5 years, ultimately. Now, they'll probably try to throw the book at him. The prosecutors will want Manafort to spend the rest of his life in prison. Their worst nightmare is that Manafort will not be found guilty of the more substantial charges, or that he will but get a small sentence because of the way the prosecution has handled itself in a shitty and opaque manner. Their worry, I think, is that Manafort will get time served, or that in a few months beyond the sentencing date he'll be out and he'll write like a tell-all book about how stupid the FBI is, and how the case was a witch hunt, and how Trump was right. And then Trump's approval will skyrocket, and Trump will probably pardon him anyway after the fact for all the other charges. He'll give him leniency of some sort. By the way, if Manafort gets an excessive sentence, Trump probably should commute the sentence. Yeah, he broke the law, but he's already been in there for several years. Who fucking cares? What are they going to do, impeach him? Not going to be able to impeach him for that. No. I think that Paul Manafort laundered money for foreign groups. But the whole reason for the Mueller probe in the first place was specifically with regards to the election, which this has nothing to do with, and specifically with regards to politically motivated Russian collusion. Not money laundering 10 years ago by someone who at the time was not working on behalf or with Donald Trump. Then we find out Tim Weber, or whatever his name is, and Greg Craig and all these other people, leftists and Podesta, are all named in the same thing and referred to other prosecutors. This is a money laundering ring a decade ago having nothing to do with the Trump campaign. The problem is when the initial justification to the public was given for why a probe was necessary, collusion was mentioned. Collusion with Russia, and it was politically motivated. It wasn't, hey, Trump colluded with Russia to make money. No, it was Trump colluded with Russia to fuck up the electoral process. Or someone close to him did. Trump must have known about him. Where's the Trump indictment? Where's the Don Jr. indictment? Where's the Roger Stone indictment? You're never going to get them. Because the only thing that they found was what they dug really hard for. In order to justify a probe that was based on Christopher Steele's bullshit. And we're going to have to, main news of the day is that the FOIA request is granted and the FBI dumps a bunch of Christopher Steele memo pages, only they're all completely fucking blank. What a revelation that is. Really a lot of freedom of information there. It's all 100% redacted for the most part. Based on that faulty premise, the FBI launched an expansive probe, which had ultimately basically carte blanche, in Mueller's case, to do whatever it wanted. There's a reason why Congress can't read the actual scope of the probe. It's because it's limitless. It's basically, hey, we think that there was collusion. Investigate whoever you want. You can do whatever you want by any means you want. Witch hunt, throw people in solitary, practically psychologically torture them. Whoever you want to haul in for whatever reason, anything you find, you can at least refer. Mueller can do whatever he wants, says Deputy A.G. Rosenstein. By the way, he should be fired. Congress should get rid of him. When Sessions says we're not going to impeach him, I question whether Jeff Sessions is capable of doing his job. I think Jeff Sessions should be let go of. I think Donald Trump should fire Jeff Sessions and get somebody in there who at the very least knows marijuana is not the devil's weed. which presumably means someone intelligent enough to know Rosenstein has to go. It'll look conspicuous, but it's not impeachable. Then finally, the scope of the probe can be given over to Congress. The content of the probe, the reasoning behind it can be given over to Congress. They then can determine whether it's appropriate to continue, or whether to get rid of the probe once and for all as the witch hunt that it has devolved into. We know that it is. We were told Trump or someone right next to him colluded with a foreign state during the election. That didn't happen. We know it didn't happen. They would have found evidence that it happened. If they can dig back 10 years into someone who was very early on fired from the Trump campaign anyway, and say he laundered money, and he evaded taxes, and look at all the shit he supposedly did that may not even be real. And Flynn did dirty dealings with Turkey and with Russia, and look, we found evidence of this from years ago. If they can find that, don't you think that with all the so-called evidence being presented every day by the legacy media, they would have indicted Don Jr. or Roger Stone by now? Or Steve Bannon? Wouldn't they have hauled him in for questioning? Wouldn't Trump be on the chopping block for impeachment? He did nothing wrong. The Trump Tower meeting that everyone drummed up a few days ago. So fucking what? Trump okayed a meeting between a Russian and his kids and Roger Stone. Doesn't matter. That's not illegal. There's nothing illegal about it, and the dirt was offered after he'd given the go-ahead because he didn't know dirt was going to be offered. Dirt that, by the way, was Christopher Steele-ish in nature. We've got dirt on Hillary Clinton. It's a Wikipedia article. Everyone knows she's dirty. Why the hell are they going to pay you money for stuff they already know, dude? It's not going to happen. There's no reason for Trump to have colluded. He knew, I think he knew, because he's rubbed elbows with these idiots for all of his life. He knew how easy it would be to fuck them. He knew how easy it would be to screw them and play 4D chess. He knew that he would win. Why would he collude? But Manafort 10 years ago, he's like, hey, I'm a lobbyist. I'm going to make a lot of money here. I don't care whether it's for a pro-Russian or anti-Russian group. Whoever's going to pay me more, I'll do work for, says Manafort. The Podestas were along with him. A then Republican congressman was with them. Greg Craig, an unofficial Obama advisor, was with him. They're the ones that did things that were wrong. And probably they don't even bother charging. The Mueller probe at this point is so ineffectual and so tainted. It's like half of the country won't even accept the results one way or the other. If they indicted Trump, half the country would say, well, it's a witch hunt. This is a coup. This is basically a coup. It's time to consider our options as a free people. I guarantee you it would cause major problems, which is another reason they'll never indict Trump. They don't want a civil war within this country or a second American Revolution or, a million people to die in protests, which is what would happen. Some of these people are jumpy. They're like the Jade Helm crowd and stuff. Not a great idea. Likewise, on the other side, they say, well, nothing's going to happen. We're going to just end the probe in a summary fashion. It would piss off a lot of people on the left. It would look like justice undone. At this point, Trump would probably pressure Mueller to continue the probe in private. Yeah, keep it up for a while. We need to, you're not going to indict me. I know that because I did nothing wrong. But, people on the left are going to get really jumpy, really nervous if you end the probe too quickly. Keep it going for a little while longer, extend it after the midterms. Make it look like you're on, their side and you screwed me in the midterms. Fuck the Republicans because, Trump's a Democrat, basically. It'd be really, really funny. No, it's very funny. And then for Slate to come out and state objectively, look, link in the description, archived. And it's archived for a good reason. By the way, if Paul Manafort gets out, he should go to that archive and consider a lawsuit. Slate is stating in an objective sense, well, he laundered money. He hasn't been found guilty of that yet. What happens if he's found not guilty? Or tax evasion, these things that you're saying he objectively did. Whoops, that's libel. That's a really big problem because you're attempting to affect someone who works in a commercial, branded, self-marketed capacity. You're attempting to label them a criminal. What if he gets found not guilty of those charges? Whoops, you're going to owe him millions and millions of dollars. There won't be a Slate anymore. Every asset you have, you'll have to liquidate to pay off Paul Manafort, and it'll be funny to watch. It'll be a big hit to them if that happens. Now, of course, there's less than a 50-50 chance that he doesn't get one of these major charges. At the very least, money laundering is likely to stick. But tax evasion? So far, all the state said is his lifestyle was incommensurate with his income, as stated on his tax reporting forms. Oh, he lived too richly. It's impossible. What about credit? What about getting a gift? What about he found a bar of gold buried in his backyard? Stranger things have happened. How are you going to prove that those things didn't happen? No, you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he evaded his taxes. Prove it. You can get a warrant, as Ron Paul maybe would say. I don't think they're going to be able to prove that. Based on what they've submitted so far, it's unlikely. They'll get him on money laundering charges, but they're going to give him time served, dude. As for treason and all these things, they're not going to find him guilty of that. They'll find him guilty of witness tampering, and they'll say time served for that probably too, because that's basically the sentence you would get. That's about all. Peace out.